Hello and welcome. Before we get into today's stories, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. When the 911 dispatcher in Valencia County picked up the call just after 3 a.m., she probably expected another routine emergency, maybe a break-in or a drunk driver. Instead, a quiet teenage voice came through the line and said words that would haunt everyone who heard them. "I just killed my family."
Valencia County 911, where's your emergency? Valencia 911, caller, can you hear me?
Hi, miss. I just wanted to call you, tell you that I killed my parents.
I'm sorry?
Well, I wanted to call you, tell you that I killed my parents.
You called 911 and said you killed your family. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in the kitchen
Okay, how did you kill them?
with a pistol.
Where are they at?
They're laying in the ground dead.
They're laying in the ground?
Yeah.
Who did you kill?
I killed my whole parents.
Your parents and who else? I'm here with you. Just talk to me, okay?
My whole family.
Your mom and dad?
Yeah.
Who else?
My brothers.
How many brothers do you have?
2.
Okay. When did this happen?
It just happened.
How long ago? Like 5 minutes ago? 3 minutes ago?
Like 10 minutes ago.
The caller identified himself as 16-year-old Diego Lever from the small desert town of Belen, New Mexico. His voice was steady, almost emotionless. When asked why he'd done it, he simply said, "Something bad possessed me." Within minutes, deputies were racing through the dark, silent desert toward the Lever home, a quiet property on the outskirts of town, surrounded by nothing but sand, sagebrush, and the sound of distant trains. When they arrived, they found Diego waiting outside, barefoot, holding a small bird in his hand. He was calm, cooperative, and extremely drunk. Officers gently took the bird from him, cuffed him, and led him to the squad car. He didn't resist. He didn't even seem to care. But what waited inside the house would shake even the most seasoned officers.
Have him jump the fence. Let's go. Let's go. Bird. I'll take your bird. Let me see. I got your bird. I got him. I got him. I got him. Sure. I got his bird. Yeah, let's go.
Inside the Levers' home, Christmas lights still glowed faintly across the porch. But the moment police pushed through the front door, the air was heavy, silent except for the creak of boots on blood-stained floors. Room by room, they cleared the home. In the hallway, they found 3 bodies, later confirmed to be Diego's mother Adriana and his siblings Adrian and Alexandra. Each had been shot once in the head. In the next room lay Leonardo, Diego's father, also killed by a single gunshot. All 4 had been murdered just minutes earlier.
I'm on your 1080 on the...
3 people, 4 people.
I'm on you. Yep, I'm on you. Oh.
Need one more. I'm with you. 4, I got 4 people.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1 in the bathroom, 3 in the hallway. Hold what you got right there, then let's start real quick.
Let me hold over here. Let me hold this off. We're going to back to back, okay? This is actually clear. We're good.
Now, to understand just how unthinkable this was, you need to know who the Levers were. They weren't the kind of family anyone expected tragedy from. Adriana Bencomo, 35, was a respected firefighter and mother who'd spent over a decade helping others in emergencies. Her husband Leonardo, 42, was an electrician and data technician, known for being hardworking and devoted. Together they raised 3 kids, Diego, his twin brother Adrian, and their younger sister Alexandra, in a home filled with laughter, small adventures, and weekend projects. Even Diego himself had shown no signs of trouble. No history of violence, no behavioral issues, no red flags. To friends, he was just another quiet teenager trying to figure himself out. That's what made the 911 call so incomprehensible. As police worked through the property that night, they realized someone was missing. Leonardo's father, who lived in a separate small building on the same lot. There was a terrifying thought. What if he'd been killed too? Or worse, what if he was involved? Officers swept through the darkness, clearing out sheds, a garage, and even an old RV, each one empty. Then finally, from one of the side buildings, they heard movement. Weapons drawn, they shouted for anyone inside to come out. Moments later, an elderly man stepped into the hallway, shirtless and confused. It was the grandfather. He was alive, and completely unaware that his entire family had just been killed next door. The officers had to tell him the truth, and in that moment, everything fell apart.
Sheriff's office, anybody inside make express zone? Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office! La policía! Somos la policía! ¿Alguien está adentro? ¿Alguien más vive aquí en esta casa? ¿Alguien más vive en esta casa? No.
Todavía sí, ella vive el hijo mío, la esposa y mis 3 nietos.
¿Listo?
By sunrise, the news had spread through the small town of Balin like wildfire. 4 members of a well-known family had gone overnight, and the killer was one of their own. Diego Lever was taken to the hospital for medical evaluation, then later booked into juvenile detention. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. As investigators combed through the scene, the evidence made one thing clear. Diego acted alone. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle that suggested anyone else was involved. On the dining table, police found a silver and black Ruger pistol, still covered in blood. But the question that lingered, and still does, is why? According to investigators, Diego had been severely intoxicated at the time of the murders. It's believed that while the rest of the family went to bed, he and his father stayed up drinking. At some point, something snapped. Whether it was alcohol, a mental break, or a combination of both, no one can say for sure. During his police interviews, Diego claimed a bad spirit had taken control of him. He said a voice told him to kill his family. When asked if he'd ever felt violent before, he said no. But the cold precision of the crime, 1 bullet per victim, all to the head, left investigators questioning if this was really just drunken chaos or something much darker. As word spread, schools across the area, Belen High, Belen Middle, and the School of Dreams Academy, brought in counsellors for students. A GoFundMe was launched to help cover funeral expenses, and messages of shock poured in from neighbours and friends who couldn't believe Diego was capable of such horror. Even now, his surviving grandfather has stayed silent, avoiding public statements while grieving the unimaginable, losing 2 generations of his family overnight. In New Mexico, first-degree murder carries a possible life sentence, though the state doesn't have the death penalty. The defense will likely argue mental illness or a psychotic break. The prosecution will likely point to the methodical nature of the killings as evidence of intent. Either way, what happened in that quiet desert home will stay with Belen forever. A chilling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't come from strangers in the dark. Sometimes it comes from inside your own home. The camera is grainy, the lighting is dim, but the image is unmistakable. An 11-year-old girl, blonde hair tucked behind her shoulders, walks alone across the lot of a Sarasota car wash. She doesn't know it, but someone is already watching her. From the edge of the frame, a man appears. At first he looks casual, like he's just passing by, but then, in a single calculated step, he moves directly into her path. He leans in, blocking her way. She freezes. His hand clamps around her arm. For a split second, she looks like she might pull back. She doesn't. He whispers something we can't hear, and in seconds he's steering her out of sight. She's gone. That was 6:30 p.m. on January 31st, 2004. The last known moments of Carly Brucia. Hours later, detectives would replay that tape over and over. The image of a child being led away by a stranger would burn itself into the memory of an entire community. And for Carly's family, the nightmare had only just begun. At 6 o'clock, Carly had promised she'd be home. By 7, she was nowhere to be found. Her stepfather, Steve Kanzler, drove the same mile stretch again and again, headlights sweeping over empty sidewalks. He rolled down the window, calling her name into the night. Nothing. By the time he pulled back into the driveway, dread had already set in. Susan, Carly's mother, didn't need to hear an explanation. She felt it. Something terrible had happened. Together they went back out, retracing her route, checking side streets and wooded patches. At one point, a red tow truck crept past them. Odd. They noticed it again minutes later, parked in front of the friend's house Carly had just left. But Carly wasn't there. At 7:30 p.m, Susan's panic spilled into the phone lines. Her voice cracked as she told the 911 operator, "My daughter is missing. She's only 11. We've searched everywhere."
911, what's the location of the emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am? And your phone number? Okay. Has she been missing before?
No, she had a fight with her girlfriend and she decided to walk home. And we've been driving around for about an hour and a half. And it's now an hour and a half walk.
Within minutes, a bolo was issued. Be on the lookout for Carly Bruscher. Officers combed the area. Nothing. Neighbours joined in. Flyers were printed. The search was officially on. But while the family clung to hope, investigators were already preparing Susan for the unthinkable. Before leaving her house, they told her to call Carly's dentist. They might need dental records for identification. It was a warning no parent should ever hear. The search had barely begun when suspicion turned inward. Steve Kanzler, Carly's stepfather, was restless. He handed out flyers, desperate for leads. But one comment he made struck a nerve. At an equipment rental store, he allegedly asked if someone could get him drugs. After this whole thing blew over, the employee was stunned. A missing stepdaughter, and that's what was on his mind. He called police. Detectives brought Steve in. His answers were calm, maybe too calm. He insisted he'd been at home with Susan the entire evening. Susan backed him up. The alibi checked out. Eventually, investigators cleared him. But the doubt had already taken root. Then came another lead. The red tow truck. Steve swore he'd seen it circling near the search route. The truck belonged to Ron Choquette, a man casually dating the mother of Carly's friend. Ron admitted he was home the night Carly slept over. At one point, he was the only adult in the house. It was enough to raise eyebrows. But when detectives pressed him, Ron said he'd already left for work before Carly walked home. His co-workers confirmed it. The red truck was scratched off the list. Still, officers couldn't shake the sense that something darker was at play. Carly's friend hinted she'd been upset, maybe even reluctant to go home. Could this be a runaway case, or was it something far worse? The uncertainty weighed heavy. But the very next morning, police dogs traced Carly's scent. It ended not on her route home, but at Evie's car wash. And there, hidden on a security tape, was the proof. Carly hadn't run away. She'd been taken. The dogs had led police straight to Evie's car wash. The grainy surveillance tape did the rest. At 6:30 p.m, Carly appears on screen. Seconds later, a man steps into her path. Tattoos coil down his forearms. He's dressed in what looks like a mechanic's jumpsuit. A name tag glints on his chest, but the camera can't make it out. With one quick motion, he seizes her arm and pulls her from the frame. When Susan and Steve saw the footage, their hearts collapsed. The girl on that tape was undeniably Carly. The stranger beside her, they had never seen him before. The video hit local news stations within hours. Over and over, the public watched Carly's final moments of freedom, and then the calls came in. Hundreds of tips, hundreds of names. Most were dead ends, but a handful of callers said the same thing. That looks like Joseph Smith. Smith, 37, an auto mechanic, already had a history that read like a warning label. Drug arrests, violence against women, kidnapping, false imprisonment. He was out on parole, and one of his co-workers swore the man's mannerisms on the tape matched him exactly. Detectives now had a name, and they knew time was running out. Detectives drove to a small house in Sarasota, where Joseph Smith was renting a room from friends. As they pulled up, they spotted him outside, cigarette in hand. But when they knocked, the door stayed shut. Minutes later, his sister slipped inside, and eventually Joseph appeared, claiming he'd been asleep the whole time. The questions started fast. Where were you Sunday evening? Smith said he'd been at home, watching the Super Bowl. He insisted his friends could vouch for him. When detectives showed him the still frame from the car wash video, he didn't deny the resemblance. Looks like me, he admitted, but swore he wasn't there. Then came the request. Roll up your sleeves. The tattoos on his forearms matched perfectly. Investigators also noticed cuts and scrapes on his hands. Smith brushed them off as nothing, but his story began to fray further. He admitted he had borrowed his friend's car the night Carly vanished, a pale yellow station wagon. Surveillance showed a yellow vehicle circling the car wash minutes before the abduction. Smith said he only drove it to the marina to look at the water. His friends, however, weren't so sure. One of them later revealed the odometer had racked up more than 300 miles during that trip. And then there was his outfit. On the night Carly disappeared, Smith had left the house in a mechanic's uniform, the same kind of jumpsuit caught on the tape. Piece by piece, the walls were closing in. But Smith wasn't talking. Joseph Smith's silence didn't last. From jail, he called his brother John and confessed. He admitted taking Carly, assaulting her and choking her too hard. John led police to a wooded patch behind a church where Carly's body lay hidden, bruised and bound. Forensics confirmed the worst. Ligature strangulation, Joseph's DNA, and fibers from her clothes inside his borrowed yellow station wagon. Outrage swept the community. How had a man with 13 prior convictions, including violent offences, still been free? In 2005, Smith was convicted of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual battery of a child. The judge overturned his death penalty, but he died in prison.
It was one of the most precious things to me in my life. Because of an animal, a disgusting, perverted animal.
The night of April 30th, 1996 was stormy in Manchester, Connecticut, when Doug Asleeb stirred from the couch to answer a commotion outside. His heart pounded as he heard the horn of his wife Gail's car blaring repeatedly. Before he could reach the door, the sharp crack of gunfire pierced the air. Doug froze, witnessing a masked figure standing by the driver's side of the vehicle, gun in hand. Instinctively, he retreated indoors to retrieve his own revolver and called emergency services.
There's a robbery here. I think somebody shot at my wife. I just saw somebody here with a bat.
By the time Manchester police officers arrived, the scene was chillingly clear. Gail, 54, was slumped across the front seat, blood pooling, glass from the shattered driver's side window littering the ground. 7 shell casings lay inside the car, the result of 5 bullets fired directly at her head at point-blank range. It was overkill, an attack that spoke of rage and familiarity. Doug's revolver had not been fired. The initial theory of a carjacking immediately fell apart. Nothing had been stolen. Detective Paul Lombardo took charge of the case, dividing his team to question neighbours while he focused on Doug. The neighbours confirmed hearing the gunshots and reported a white sedan speeding away from the scene. Doug's story that he saw a masked, light-skinned Hispanic male was inconsistent, and Lombardo noted the oddities. Gail had no enemies, and nothing had been taken from her car. It became clear this was personal. Doug, though initially a suspect due to proximity and ownership of a firearm, was soon cleared when ballistics confirmed his gun had not been fired. The detective then turned to Gail's recent behaviour for clues. Interviews with her children revealed subtle but alarming changes. She had begun covering windows with blankets, refused to let her daughter drive her car, and seemed preoccupied with safety in a way that did not match her naturally warm, trusting personality. Something had been troubling her privately. investigators learned that Gail had been targeted in small ways before the shooting. Tyrone Montgomery, a 25-year-old Walmart co-worker, had developed an unhealthy obsession with her. Initially friendly, he had escalated to persistent advances despite Gail's polite refusals, following her on days off, attempting physical contact and even pulling a BB gun on her during a ride, suggesting in a chilling aside how easy it would be to hijack her. Gail had confided only minimally about these incidents, likely trying to protect her family from worry. Detectives visited Walmart on May 1st to interview her colleagues. Employees described Tyrone as obsessed, infatuated, and increasingly intrusive. Though Gail remained polite, the repeated harassment created a climate of danger. The investigation soon found a tangible lead. Tyrone's white sedan was impounded, and inside investigators discovered items that hinted at premeditation: latex gloves, duct tape, an ice pick, women's clothing, a cake dish, and handwritten notes. One note resembled a love letter. Another, partially burned, appeared to be a checklist for committing a crime, including instructions for disguise and gaining entry into Gail and Doug's home. Handwriting analysis confirmed the notes were Tyrone's, and the chilling contents suggested a planned attack on Doug, but one that had been altered when circumstances changed. Evidence began to mount, and the net around Tyrone tightened. Yet he was elusive. By May 2nd, police learned he had checked himself into a psychiatric hospital, claiming grief over a friend's death. Hospital staff confirmed his presence, but initially refused direct questioning. Despite Tyrone's denials, forensic analysis of items tied to him strengthened the case. Shards of glass in his boots matched the broken car window at the scene, and shell casings from his basement shooting range bore microscopic marks consistent with those found in Gail's car. His obsession was no longer abstract. It had become lethal, culminating in the night that had shattered the Islib family's life. By May 3rd, 1996, detectives had pieced together a damning case against Tyrone Montgomery. Tyrone's meticulous obsession had escalated into premeditated violence. Investigators had reconstructed his intentions. He had originally planned to target Doug, but altered his plan in a moment of panic when Gail arrived home, pressing her horn and alerting him. In that instant, obsession turned to lethal action. Tyrone was arrested on May 3rd and charged with Gail's murder. A search of his home uncovered books on disguise and how to commit murder, reinforcing the theory that he had studied methods to eliminate obstacles and manipulate circumstances to his advantage. Forensic ballistics tied his weapon purchase and subsequent modifications to the gun used in the crime. When confronted with evidence, Tyrone admitted his initial intent to target Doug, but refused to claim responsibility for shooting Gail. The authorities, however, had more than enough evidence to move forward. The trial began in September 1997. The prosecution, led by Dennis O'Connor, presented a meticulous timeline: eyewitness accounts, Gail's co-worker's testimony about Tyrone's escalating obsession, forensic evidence linking him to the crime scene, and the criminal checklist notes. Ballistics experts testified that the shell casings from Tyrone's basement matched those found in Gail's car, while glass fragments in his boots corroborated his presence at the scene. The jury heard how Tyrone had followed Doug to work earlier that day, scouting his movements, and how Gail's routine had been carefully observed. Defense attorney Stephen Cashman argued that Tyrone had never confessed to the murder, attempting to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. Yet the overwhelming physical and circumstantial evidence painted a clear picture of premeditation and intent. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned on October 1st, 1997. Guilty of the murder of Gail Islib, he was sentenced to 65 years in prison. He remains incarcerated at McDougall Walker Correctional Institute, expected to be released in 2061 at age 90. This case also highlighted broader systemic failures. Walmart, where Tyrone had worked and obtained the weapon used in the crime, faced lawsuits for negligence, both for failing to address complaints about Tyrone's harassment and for mishandling the firearm sale records. While the outcomes of these suits remain unclear, they underscored the tragic consequences of ignored warning signs. Gail Isleeb's death remains a stark reminder of how obsession can escalate to lethal violence, and how vigilance, awareness, and timely intervention are crucial in preventing such tragedies.